And then as we had less burns patients, we had other patients then coming in with terrible wounds, pepper pot injuries, missing limbs. And so our nursing changed slightly from being the majority of burns to the other injuries at that point. The layout of the ship was that the operating theatre was sort of more or less in the middle. I think that probably was at one point the dance floor, and then at the front of the ship, hang on a minute, the bow of the ship, see I did learn something, the bow of the ship, that was a main ward called Seaview Ward, and behind the operating, so Seaview Ward at the front, the operating theatre, then intensive care behind, and the burns units were downstairs, down below deck. And the injuries that we were witnessing were, they moved, as I say, away from the burns to more sort of a huge amount of amputated limbs. And I remember on Seaview Ward one night, I counted, and there were 17 missing limbs on that ward, along with lots of other horrible injuries. And one of the gentlemen who, one of the chaps who had to, his injuries were so bad on his leg, he had to have, it would have gone gangrenous, so he had to have his leg removed below the knee, above the knee. And he was Special Forces, this gentleman, and he came into the operating theatre, and I was given the job to sit and hold his hand. And the reason for that was because he had a family history where he couldn't have a general anaesthetic. So he had to have his leg amputated under what's called a spinal, so that he couldn't feel anything, but nevertheless he was awake. And although he couldn't feel anything, there was movement of his leg, obviously, and all the noises, the smells, everything like that. There was like a screen that was put up between the lower part of his body. So I was behind the screen with him, and I was holding his hands. And I remember introducing myself, and I just sort of said, look, I know what's happening here, and I'm going to be with you the whole time. And to my absolute astonishment, this young Special Forces Marine, who was about to have his leg chopped off, just put his hand up, stroked my cheek, and said, sorry, I always get tearful thinking about it. And he said, you poor nurses, he said, you look so exhausted. And good God, he said, you've been given a job to sit and talk to a bloke who's having his leg chopped off. He said, I bet you don't know what the hell to talk about. And I just looked at him and I thought, what mould are you from? What has made you say that when you're about to have your leg chopped off? And it was his bravery that just reduced me to tears. And I was with him for the whole of the operation. And there were points when he was a little bit upset, but we were upset together. And I will never forget that young man, because to say he was the best of men is an understatement. To have gone through having your leg chopped off as a young man, and yet to be concerned about other people, was just phenomenal for me.